Today I sat down with Etie Hertz. Etie is first and foremost one of the great guys in the technology space. I am always just elevated, engaged, and just fulfilled having, a session chatting with him about anything and everything. And our conversation today talks a lot about what it is to raise capital and considerations you should make if you really do need to raise capital or not. We talk a bit about his app, Loris.ai, where he's the CEO there, and it is genuinely an application that I would be shocked if it didn't change the world. So to be able to sit with this guy for 45 minutes and have a conversation is honestly something I don't take for granted. So I hope you guys enjoy the conversation we had. Thanks. Hi, and welcome to Successful Scales, the show where I interview now successful professionals about their journey and try and garner insights onto any tips that can be applied to your business at home. Whether it's financial freedom or the exit of your company, wherever your journey may take you, the idea here is to simply learn from those who have done it before. I hope you enjoy and you get some value out of this. Buckle up and enjoy the episode. Etie, mate, welcome to an episode of Successful Scales. What a pleasure it is to have you on and also to see this incredible New York backdrop behind you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Yoni. I haven't talked to you in a while. That's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, no, listen, we got introduced by our good friend, both of us, Daniel, Rev, who is just an absolute superstar. And I think from the minute that, anyone he sends me, and he doesn't introduce me to many people, but anytime it's someone worth chatting to. And I've got to say, from the minute that we sat down, I've just been seriously inspired by a lot of what you've done, what you're up to, and, particularly, and I'm sure I'm going to let you talk about yourself because I'll butcher your background, but especially all the stuff you're up to with Loris.ai. I mean, it's just, for me, it's revolutionary. So before we dive into a few of these things, I'd love for those who don't know you to just hear a little bit about you and your experience. And yeah, it's the floor is yours.
Okay. I don't know how detailed you want me to go, so just let me know.
Give me the details. I want every bit of it.
So I started my career in New York as a corporate attorney at a big firm doing M&A, private equity, and VC mostly. And I did that for a bunch of years. I think very early on, I realized that wasn't going to be like my long-term career path, and I was thinking about different ways to do other things. Also, at a young age, you start advising companies that are doing really interesting things, startups that are raising a lot of money. So it instills kind of this thought process that maybe you might have some ideas that might be worth pursuing. So I did that for a bunch of years. I left right before the recession, actually started an investment company, investing in all kinds of distressed assets and companies in the States. The recession hit, everything went upside down. So it was a really stressful period. And in that process, I started some businesses that failed, a couple that succeeded. One of them was a payments company that I started at the beginning of 2009, essentially to provide payments technology platform for SMBs in the States. Felt like small businesses were really getting the short end of the stick. Back then, there were not a lot of tools for them. If you weren't a big company, you were kind of getting screwed left and right. So we thought there was a way to build a platform and help these small businesses thrive that would take a long time to kind of bear fruit. But we thought the bet was essentially like, if we could make this work, in 10 years, it would be an interesting business. And so that was 2009. And then around 2011, I started meeting folks who were building iPad-based point of sale systems. So I was introduced to founders of ShopKeep, which was the first iPad-based point of sale system in New York, one of the first SaaS companies in New York. It was before Square was the first app in the App Store that did this. And when I left that meeting, I was like, this is the future. Every retailer, restaurant, everyone's going to ultimately be on an iPad. I have to find everyone who's doing this. So we kind of ran around the country looking for people developing this new technology and trying to power like the payments platform for these folks, because all these businesses needed payments network and access to that. So that was like a crazy time, like a really interesting, explosive period. So we grew really quickly, and these companies all raised a ton of money. And ultimately, ShopKeep bought our business 2015. So I joined there, and I became the chief revenue officer at ShopKeep for about 3 years. And ShopKeep's actually recently, a couple months ago, got sold to another point of sale company out of Canada called Lightspeed, a publicly traded company, which is a big, massive company now trying to compete with Square. So the whole ride was pretty amazing and kind of fortuitous. So really exciting. And then at Loris, I can get into Loris now, or
Yeah. Keep going, mate.
Cool.
So you're just seeing me write down all these
Cool.
notes that I've got so many questions, and what an interesting. I think your background is even more interesting than I even anticipated. You've kind of gone the reverse. So I'm Anyway, tell us about Loris, because that's honestly when I saw that when I saw that video, and I hope it is live now. I hope that people can see what Loris does outside of that sort of protected video. But wowee, tell us about Loris.
Sure. So Loris actually started out of a nonprofit in New York City called Crisis Text Line, which is the largest crisis hotline, all SMS based, free, 24/7. Started about 7 years ago, backed by some really famous folks in Silicon Valley and elsewhere, just doing really amazing work. And a lot of folks weren't doing SMS based communication at that scale over the last almost decade. So incredible work and understanding and learnings from the space. And then a few years ago, some companies started reaching out saying, essentially, as we're thinking about moving, from communicating with our customers from phone into digital, which is SMS, chat, and email messaging now, you all are the best in the world at calling people down in written form and communicating in written form. Maybe you could teach us how to do that. So originally, the idea was essentially to build empathetic training videos for large enterprise clients. And then through testing with some huge brands, folks said, this is good, but if you could do this live with machine learning, you have this huge database and all these data scientists, the whole world would need that. So that's what we became. So now we sit on top of platforms like Zendesk, LivePerson, Twilio, Salesforce, and we work with really fast growing brands, and we enable their CX teams to have really effective, efficient, and high quality conversations with their customers.
Unreal. Yeah. And so just to take it even further, and this is just how impressed I am by the demo that I saw, it's effectively in real time, sitting over these platforms, you're getting an indication of how the customer is actually reacting from an emotional level. If they're happy, if they're sad, they've got their own scoring system. If I remember, it's +2 through to -2, and it moves through this gamut. And you actually see, based on the recommended responses, it will actually, help that customer service person in the seat make that recommendation, and then they actually integrate it. So there is a human component to it, but it's like it was wild to see. Have I messed any of that up? Did I get it right?
No. So that's right. I mean, our focus essentially on making the humans. We're team human. We want to make the humans as effective as possible, give them kind of superpowers. And if you can think about the world today, the customer care job was difficult to begin with. And in today's world, especially in COVID, and a lot of things have gone online, and people are now adding self-service tools and things like that. They're filtering off some easy conversations. So the agent's job that was difficult to begin with is now more and more difficult. They're just getting yelled at all the time. And when you have to do this, not only one at a time, but now oftentimes in chatter and messaging, you have to handle 3 or 4 conversations at a time. That's very difficult. So it's really hard to understand, how's Yoni feeling when he's inbounding? Was I talking to him, or I was talking to Stacy? No, Stacy was fine. Yoni's not okay. What's happening here? Just the cognitive load of flipping between those tickets, those conversations, really, really difficult. And our goal essentially is to make the agent's life better, giving them all these tools to understand how you're feeling, what your intent is, what your resolution is, and how do you sift through tickets in a much easier way, and making your life better, and ultimately making the end user's experience much more powerful.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, again, I'm lucky that I've actually seen what it looks like to go through it, and it's just such a powerful experience to be able to have that access to, literally, I think you said tens of potentially millions of conversations that I had in what is, the most distressed people, going through life events, and then effectively communicating that into big data and machine learning and AI, and then being able to overlay that. I mean, you've created a super tool to really de-stress the lives of the people who are trying to, make decisions on the fly, and also track them through that journey to get them to hopefully a positive experience. So it's, it changed my perception on what was possible from a customer support perspective, really. And, I keep singing its praises because I just have never seen anything. I've never seen anything like it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And things have changed a lot, right? Like the end user, the consumer today expects a lot more than they did even pre-pandemic. Like everybody wants everything now. So the levels are heightened. Everyone expects more of you, and you as an agent are expected to do, X number of tickets at the same time. The stakes are just very, very high. It's like a super stressful environment. So we're happy that that we're able to like make that a better experience for both sides of the equation. Yeah, it's really, really a fun. It's a fun and important endeavor, and we like to say it's like trying to recreate the human mind and getting people to where they want to go in a smooth way. It's a super challenging and interesting process.
Yeah, no, fascinating. And I could seriously do a whole session just digging into that. But I want to talk more about you and the start of your career, because like I mentioned before, I feel like you've kind of done the upside down equation, right? You moved straight into M&A and private equity and, venture capital and that space where, most people start from a position of like, what the fuck is it? Firstly, and then from there, how do I sort of, that's like the end game, right? Is that you move into that space. So how did you find your way into M&A as effectively I guess you studied law, right? So
I mean, it depends how far back we go. I guess like my parents were immigrants. So like, you're a pretty good student. What do you want to do? You want to be a lawyer or a doctor? Like, I'm not sure, or a banker. And I ended up, for whatever reason, I ended up going to law school, and I was lucky enough to get to like a good firm. And at the firm, you could do litigation or corporate. And I liked both. I probably think litigation is more interesting, but corporate work I thought would give me a chance to leave law if I didn't love it. So it's kind of a safety net. So what happens is I don't know anything. And then I'm, 24 or something. I'm sitting in on $1 billion deal with these humongous companies. It's insane. It doesn't make any sense. Like, how am I in the room, and why is someone paying for my time in this room? Like, you don't even know anything. And it's not just me. There's like 3 people like me, and there's one partner talking, and someone's paying for all of us to sit here and learn. So that alone was it's an incredible experience. But then, almost like coming from nowhere to be in that room, you realize, oh, I'm not sure. Is this? You would think you were striving for this, like to get into that room with these people at these companies is so incredible. And there's pluses and minuses to it, right? Like, do you want to do that for 30, 40, 50 years? It's a tough world. It's tough to bill by the hour. It's tough to like be expected to, do, how many 16, 17, 18-hour days can you do? How many years in a row can you do that? How many all-nighters in a row can you do? So a lot of people quickly think like, is this for me? Can I invest my heart in this? Can I do this forever? And then, you're in these transactions and you see people that look like you, your age, doing deals, raising money and all this stuff. So, I guess at some point I said to someone, I'm sick of people coming to me on Friday, but like, I have a good idea. Go paper this. I'll be back on Monday. And then on Monday, you're like, over the weekend, I had a couple of ideas too. Maybe I should go try them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a pretty wild ride. Like, it's such a short period of time to see all of those things.
So how'd you find your way out? As in how do you find your way out into, there's obviously been a lot of things in between, but you're someone, again, from the minute that we connected, you were someone that, to me at least, you look at the world differently. And still right now and today, it's not about the transaction and the money. It's about the impact. It's about making good decisions on how you want to live your life, how you want to invest your time, what you want to be doing with your life. So, again, the audience that we're speaking to, it's a lot of entrepreneurs who are looking to make good decisions and grow big businesses, scale, and have success in, and I would say in life, like life and business, they're not mutually exclusive. You have to be cognizant of that. So, what was that like for you in sort of making that decision, and remind me what the next step was? Because I wrote down a ton of notes, but you've just done so many things.
Well, no, it's funny and I always think this because I listen to podcasts like incessantly. You hear someone's story. If I tell you my life in 3 minutes, it sounds amazing, but I skipped all the horrible things that happened in the middle, right? Like in the recession, you go from like this fancy law firm office to like, you have a business you thought you started that can't make money. I couldn't grow a beard. I'm like getting married. Like your life went 180 very, very quickly. You go from the 40th floor of like a tower in New York to like, I'm trying to sell payments at a gas station in Brooklyn at 6 a.m. on a Sunday. So I guess to answer your question, like how I started getting out of it, I feel like I've dipped my toe a lot to try to understand if there was opportunity in different places. So even when I was a lawyer, one of my best friends was a banker at a big bank, and we decided to start a DVD vending machine business on the side. So you hear like on the side and the side hustle, but the side hustle when you're a lawyer and you're a banker is like 3 hours a day that start at like 2 a.m. So we actually came up with this business plan. We went to Korea, we manufactured machines, we put them at NYU, Rutgers, a bunch of universities, and like that was our plan. So we tried that actually, and we had an opportunity maybe to raise money and maybe compete with Netflix at the time. It was like selling DVDs. I thought that was a silly idea. Like, who wants to wait 3 days for a movie? So I was wrong. Like Redbox didn't even exist yet, right? That was like an interesting change. If I had a mentor, if someone would have told me that that was like a risk worth taking, we probably would have done it. I was like, no, we'll just have a side business. It'll cash flow, and fine. So we did that. It was fine. The business was fine. It lasted for 10 years, and it didn't become a big business, but it was okay. I had a consulting business on the side. I tried a lot of different things to figure out how do I get out of law? Like, what's better than the hand I'm playing right now? And then I had a chance to start this investment company with some pretty impressive people that I thought was a risk worth taking. But then the recession, like within a few months, I left, like I jumped out of the plane without a parachute, and then like the recession happened, blew up all my plans. So then for, I don't know, 2 years or something, it was like trying to start businesses, failing. At night, I went back, I started doing legal work at night, just to like make some money. So that whole period was really informative, probably like made me this as strong as possible, but it was painful. So it was really difficult when you were going through it. In retrospect, like that's what made you, right? That's like every story. So that was great. And then what happened to the payments business at first, it was like really slow. I thought it was gonna be like the DVD vending machine business. You make like $100 in a month. And then it's like this little snowball. And then somewhere it smells like, wait, this might be a thing. It's like, it's a wheel that maybe I caught it and now I can spin it on its own a little bit. Certainly like one of those moments was when I met Shopkeep. When I met the first iPad-based point of sale system, I was like, oh my God, I could see this. And it's clear as day. Everyone's going to want this. Like, this is going to start a revolution. And then you start to kind of like lean in, like, I see opportunity here. So let me invest more and more time, more money into this. Yeah. I mean, at the beginning, even like we made a bunch of bets, like we were tiny, trying to compete with bigger players. We had to like commit to like a certain amount of revenue and guarantee all kinds of things. None of us had any money. I mean, like, so all those things, we got lucky, but we tried, I've also failed many times. So like we tried a bunch of doors, a lot of them were shut. One of them opened, another story sounds amazing, but the process it wasn't like seamless, but it was super interesting.
And
I think
that's exactly it. That's exactly it. I feel like so many people are looking at the situation and sort of glorifying it, like, wow, look how successful this person is. They've achieved so much. They're not looking at all those failures that you've gone through. Like, I started, I don't know, 3 or 4 drop shipping businesses. Yeah, a few of them took off, a few of them went bust. Facebook kicked me off. I didn't realize you couldn't sell knives on the website. I knew I couldn't advertise it. Anyway, there's all these things that happen. I got absolutely, I had the carpet ripped from under my feet realistically when I grew an Amazon business from 2 to 5 million in 12 months and saw none of that exit ticket. It was acquired. But those are the moments, right? Those are the moments that really make you, and they make you question, like, I could sit here and I could be really sorry for myself and say, oh, well, look at that opportunity that I've missed. But, I think it's like everything in life, you invest the time and you take calculated risks, but risks nonetheless. And ultimately, if you have that mindset that you will ultimately endure and overcome, and that ticket is going to come, it's invaluable.
Yeah, I've drawn this graph for a lot of folks, younger folks that worked with me. Like over the years, most people's life is some sort of like linear, like at least in your mind, it's this linear line, right? It's like, it's going to go this way. I'm going to get better tomorrow. Will be better than today. But if you really want to have like an outsized return, you have to like eat a lot of shit for a long time. So you go down and all your friends keep going, their jobs keep getting better, and you can't find your way for a long time. But if it works and you take the risk and it pays off, it'll all be worth it at the end. Like, it's really frustrating to read like startup Twitter, oftentimes VC Twitter, because everyone's like how great everything is all the time. And people don't realize that's survivorship bias, or it's just people just showing you their best faces and they're not telling you about all the struggles that they've had. So for folks who are looking to start something and try, they don't realize that everyone's going through what you're going through. Like, it's hard for everybody. Like, once in a while, someone gets super lucky and within 5 minutes they have product market fit, but that's certainly not the norm. I mean, that's pretty difficult.
Yeah, it's near impossible. And I think as well, a lot of people look at it too, like, okay, they started this. Okay, even those people that find product market fit and have, luck, right? It's also every single thing up until that point in their life that they've gone through and those experiences that have yielded that return. So, you might say that, yeah, we got really lucky, which you actually have said a couple of times today, but you made your own luck here. You invested the time, you took the risks, and ultimately, because you're a pretty switched on guy, you're going to make a good decision, and you're going to have the right partners and the right backing and the right network to achieve it. And that's why, when I look at what you're up to with Loris, I mean, it's, for me, when I saw it that first time, it was as clear as day. This is something in my mind that will revolutionize the world of, of customer support and response. And, I don't know how far into the future you're planning right now, but one of the things that you shared with me at the time, I was like, I can't even believe that you can move it to where you sort of started talking to me about. I don't know how public knowledge those next iterations are, so I'm going to keep my mouth shut. But just just insane to me. Yeah, I just keep
Yeah, I
talking
mean,
about how good the
what's
platform
happening.
is.
Look what's happening now. There's a lot of things that are happening now with data science and machine learning that you couldn't do years ago. And if you use that technology for good, like, you can really empower people, right? There are ways to displace humans, and there's ways to make humans better at what they do. And when you can find the right place of, like, machines are good at certain things, humans are good at other things. If you find the right nexus between those two, then you can really find something special. And that's really, like, our focus. So it's a super exciting time. And yeah, and the space in general and what's happening with machine learning and data science in the world is, like, super fascinating. Regardless of almost whatever you do, it's probably relevant to you in some way.
Yeah, it's just the amount of information that you now have, and what you can do with it. And if you're intelligent enough to be able to, there's all this big data that's going on, all this machine learning and AI. And I think that what the biggest challenge is, and this is why you need some of the smart people in the world, is how do you actually take all of that information and interpret it into something that's meaningful? So, to come back to Loris again, you've taken something where every single person who is going through a crisis situation, and there's literally humans who are, I would imagine, clinically trained in dealing with, we're talking about psychologists here, I would have to assume, or people that have done some level of training to be able to respond to these people who are dealing with serious situations. You've taken all of this information and you've turned it in a way to effectively interpret emotion. So I'm saying, like, to come up with that idea, to also get behind it and say that's something that makes sense. I mean, that in and of itself that's the special sauce. And then also being able to actually action it and take it to market, not just from the data and implication and implementation perspective, but also, like, I mean, you just casually dropped some of the names of your partners. We're talking about some of the biggest customer support service providers on planet Earth. How do you even go about that? Like, I've got a bunch more questions, but how, what, that's a big question, actually. That's already, let's take a few steps back here for a second. Because it's not every day that I get to sit down with someone who's had the M&A experience, that's raised money, looks like on several occasions, has had an exit, has gone through the full life cycle, and is sitting back in it. At what point, does it make sense for businesses typically to look to raise money? We're a business now where we're profitable, plus minus, we're, multi-million-dollar business. Is this a time that I should start saying, right, I really want to supercharge it, I've got this idea, I've got technology that we're building on the back end? Like, what are the cues for someone that's potentially going down that path? When is the right time, and why would you do it?
So I think that, again, the world that we live in, especially you and I, the stuff that we consume, the podcast, Twitter, Facebook, etc., that you're reading and seeing, glorifies raising money. Everyone wants to talk about it. It doesn't mean anything, right? It's a means to an end. And people, I think, oftentimes they dismiss, or they just don't know, like, lifestyle businesses are a different fork in the road, oftentimes a much more meaningful fork in the road, where you decide to do things your way, and you don't have a board, you don't have investors, you don't answer to anybody other than maybe your co-founders, your partners. And it grows at a pace that you feel comfortable with. I think that you need to raise money when things are moving very quickly. So if technology is progressing at a rate that you can't keep up with, you can't fund on your own. Even if you could, you probably wouldn't want to. It's basically, you're going to take a big bet. You're going to try to build just an enormous business very, very quickly in a short amount of time. Either you want to do that, or someone in your space would want to do that and displace you. Then you're in a world where you almost have to raise money. You couldn't, Loris can't be a lifestyle business, right? Like, there's too many things happening too fast. You need people that are so talented in different parts of the world that you need to hire. It'd be very hard to do that on your own. You also want great investors and a great board to help guide you through a lot of things that are happening and are new for the first time, because things are changing so rapidly. So in a space that you're in, I would default to lifestyle business, and someone would have to convince me that, like, you have to raise money and go the VC route. And lifestyle businesses, by the way, you can maybe not raise, you could sell to a private equity shop later when you get bigger, or even sell a portion of it, and then that looks different, but it's a different race. It's all about speed, really. Like, do you have to grow really quickly? If you do, you probably need to raise money.
Yeah, no, we don't. I mean, we don't. Maybe the technology that we're building, yes, but in general, no. We're growing at a healthy pace. Like, we bootstrapped. We didn't put a whole lot of money. We already make more money each month than we did as an initial investment. So, things are growing at a rate that we're both comfortable, my co-founder and I, and that's the reality. Now, it's about, well, then what's the next step, right? As in, yeah, we're happy with these things, but there's 10 other ideas that we have that are all inside of this flywheel that we're building. And one of these big driving factors is, I'm almost looking at it as, we've built these lifestyle businesses, and that's what they really are, between Multiply Me and Escala. But what we've generated on the back of these experiences, building these lifestyle businesses, is a whole lot of IP in dealing with, nearly 100 clients in a very niche space in the e-commerce space on how to build better processes, systems, integrate technology, and create better business operating systems for what will be, I would say that I would be shocked if at least 5 or 10 of the businesses that we've already worked with don't potentially hit that $1 billion status in terms of their valuation. So
are you talking more about creating software as opposed to services?
Yes.
Or is the decision? Okay.
I'm talking about software now.
Okay. So that's a separate thing, right? You want, as a human being, you want to leverage your talents. You want to spend your time on the best use, the highest and best use of your time. It's the same in real estate. It's the same in tech. So you want to leverage software, obviously, because margins are incredibly high. You can sell the same piece of software to a lot of different people. And in services, it's tough to scale, right? Like, going from, if you think about my evolution, I was a lawyer billing by the hour to, like, trying to build software that you can sell to the whole world. So you're always trying to get more and more scale and more leverage. So I don't know if your question, I would say try to get as much scale as possible. If you need to raise money to do that, okay, then that maybe changes your equation, and you flip the switch from lifestyle business to, I'm going to raise money. But that's not what you're solving for, right? You're solving for leverage and scale. So if you can do that on your own dime, and even, take money from Multiply to do that, then maybe you could do that. Maybe you don't need to go to the outside world and then have some like partners that that are with you for the ride.
And even hearing the tone of your voice when you approach that, it's one of those things that I think a lot of people who are glorifying raising money and not really thinking through, well, all of a sudden I'm going to raise money. Okay, you know what? The sum is greater than the parts, and giving up whatever percentage you're going to give up to raise money it adds value. But the reality is, all of a sudden you're absolutely answerable to your board, to your investors. And, I would say that if we had gone down the route of raising money for Multiply Me, there is absolutely no chance that we have, I would say, a much more valuable business in Escala because of its uniqueness and its position in market. And the IP that we've been able to generate from that is, is building the flywheel. But if we'd gone down the investment route, then all of a sudden we're stuck. We have to look like not one-dimensional, but we have to look like an end-to-end executive search and HR business that's, in the Philippines, global. Maybe we expand, we build a bit of technology, whatever it is, we add that, that value. And, the goal of a VC isn't to hold on to this for the next 20 years and have a nice cash flow lifestyle. It's right. I want my return on investment in 3, 4, 5, how many years are they really going to hang around for? So it totally changes your trajectory.
Absolutely. Right. So it's tricky. especially in your space, because you're global and there's a lot of ways you can go. It's a great problem to have, right? So you have to think about decisions that you can reverse and decisions that you can't.
Yeah. Yes.
And
Exactly.
once you take money from somebody, you can't go backwards. I mean, you can, but it's not easy,
Yeah.
right? So it's just, you have to be mindful of that.
Yeah, no, it's great advice. And again, like I was saying to you before I hit record, that's exactly why I started doing this, is because, the rate of change of everything that's happening, and not just what I'm doing in the businesses that we're operating, but just in general, the rate of change. I mean, it's only getting faster. And so for everyone who's going through this journey, you got to be very careful of those decisions that you make, because if you make a wrong move, especially one where you become beholden to additional and external stakeholders. So it's also a very different equation too. If I was to say, and you went with Loris and I'm like, Etie, we've got this great idea. We've got this piece of technology. You're free. You want to get involved, equity inside of the business, helping us build it. Like, that's one thing, right? Because you're actually invested in the process, and you're part of that building block and that framework, and you're a sounding board, and you're actually living and breathing it. When you talk about VC money on the outer, they're just looking at crunching the numbers. It's a financial play here. It's nothing, it's nothing more, it's nothing less, right?
It's look, it's a game. You're entering like a room, and everyone's playing a certain game, and you have to just decide, is that the game you want to play? Is that the race that you want to run? Do you want to run at this speed? Do you want to run the 100-meter dash, but for a marathon?
Yeah.
Right?
Is that what it feels like?
That's the, I mean, you have to prove a lot of things very quickly, but that's what makes it super exciting. You have to learn so many things on a daily basis to stay at the top of your game and to be ahead of what's happening. So, I mean, it's very fulfilling in that sense, right? You're always learning, you're always growing. For people that are curious, I mean, it's a great place to be. It's a great place to be. Also, you're around a lot of people that are also smart, and they're also curious like you. So they're bringing in other ingredients, and everyone's creating this pretty amazing stew that hasn't existed before. At least that's the goal. So in that sense, that's really fun. But you're growing a services business pretty quickly. So you're getting almost all of those things anyway. So it's like, I don't know, you're in a great place. It's like,
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, you have a lot of good doors to open. Yeah.
So I've got just a few more questions, and I can't believe how quickly the time's flying by here. But again, amazing to be able to get to sit down with you and have this conversation. You went from exiting the business and selling it, and then it was the chief revenue officer, right? So you were, I'm not sure what your title was or your responsibilities, but I'm assuming you were an owner of that business, right? What was it like to transition then into the larger corporate that acquired you, and then have to be answerable again? Because I think that, for people who go down that path of exit or acquisition, M&A, in that actual business experience, it can be a little bit daunting. And so, yeah, very curious to see. You said you spent 3 years in it. What was it like?
Yeah. So the first, it was really exciting. So, I mean, at the beginning, the company I sold to a couple dozen people. And there were companies we were trying to get in touch with that wouldn't return a phone call. Like the VP of something wouldn't call us back. 2 days after we're acquired, the CEO of that publicly traded company is begging to meet me, because I'm now the CRO of like a relevant growing software business, and coming to my office. So that was really weird, right? That was almost like being first day at the law firm, where you're like, you feel like you're nobody, and why are these people in the room with me? So that was really cool. And then also suddenly, like overnight, you're managing a couple hundred people. So that's a whole new skill set that you have to learn, and in different areas that you haven't necessarily managed before, and getting a hold of the business, the metrics, understanding how to move the needle, and all that. It was just a wash of new experiences. So it was exhilarating. It was really, really cool. Also, the business, I'd been close to the business for many years. So it was like, I was like a cousin, and now I was like in the family or whatever. I was like a distant, like not blood relative, and something was like in the family. So, so that was really exciting. The whole thing of like, oh, now you have a big company and people to answer to, there was pluses and minuses to that. You got to get used to that. People, when you run your own business, it's super stressful, right? Every day you think you're going to die. You're sure you're going to die tomorrow. It doesn't matter how big your company is, right?
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think the day before closing, we were about to sign, and someone on the board asked me, like, how do you feel? I'm like, I'm sure we're going to die tomorrow. Like, no, we're buying your business tomorrow. I'm like, we haven't closed yet.
Yeah.
So I still think I'm not going make it to 2 p.m., so when you go to a bigger company, at least that goes away a little bit. Like, we're going to be around, everything's fine. So yeah, I mean, overall, it was awesome. It was a new experience. And that's essentially, like, I think what most people look for is, like, you want to, I say to my wife, we want to teach our kids how to play different games all the time. Because life just throws stuff at you, like, oh, you want to play poker? I don't know how to play poker. I know how to play backgammon. It's close. Let me try. I don't know, whatever. You always want to play different games throughout life, so you're ready for whatever the next thing is. Because, again, we keep saying this on this podcast, is life just keeps throwing new things at you. Everything's moving so fast. So you just want to accumulate experiences and knowledge and struggles. And, like, have I seen this before? Does this look like something I've done? So when we were acquired, there were a lot of things I had to do very quickly that I hadn't done before. So that was awesome. Like, I knew that was going to pay dividends in the future. And it was, like, also it was very enjoyable in the moment. So it was awesome.
So very, very, very interesting to sort of hear that transition. And, it also goes and shows very much how you're wired. It's about, that level of curiosity and expansion and looking to learn and grow. And, I would say that's definitely my motivations too. I just love the journey of learning. And it's like every time you sort of, you scrape through that next level and you get that little bit higher, you just realize how little you know and how much more there is out in the world. And it's just like, it's amazing. Like, I can't believe, like, I get into conversations like this and I'm like, whoa, I thought I knew a few things. And now I'm like, what do I know? What's managing, what's having 200 direct reports and what that looks like, even though we're growing quickly. It's a whole different mindset of how you'd approach the equation. And, you'd have to learn pretty quickly. But one of my last questions for you, just being cognizant of the time here, is now you've achieved a lot of things in your career and at a pretty young age already. And you're coming into a business like Loris. I mean, what's the driving light? What was it about it that you said, right, what aspect of it drew you in?
So I've kind of been obsessed with messaging for a long time. I built a couple of messaging apps, one with my brother, my wife is a dietitian. I built an app for her at some point. I've always been fascinated by the way people communicate over text. And that wave is coming in a huge way to everyone on the planet. So understanding how that makes people feel, I don't think there's anything more fascinating than that. And then the idea that you could actually do that and bring positivity and good to the world, in a world where, especially when people think of AI, they think of displacing human beings and it's going to make the world ultimately worse. Like, if you could use that for good, and if you could make, benefit people with this technology and learn, it's essentially like recreating the human brain, like what we're doing. I can't think of anything that's more interesting than that. I can't think of anything that we go in on a daily basis and learn more than that. You sit through a data science presentation here of, like, what we're working on. You're like, I can't believe this. How lucky am I to sit through that presentation with these incredible people telling you about these things we're going to try to accomplish. So yeah, it's super interesting. And if you think about the evolution going from, like, law to, like, fintech to this, I just think it keeps getting more interesting. At least for me, it's getting more interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
yes, I love it.
I would say like, wrapped inside of the decision is also, again, comes down to who you are as a person and, the clear desire to have positive impact on humanity, not to displace humans, but empower them, and to have that more, it feels to me, again, I'm just sitting here and picking up what I think you're putting down in having, being quite altruistic in that approach of how can you do more and achieve more and have, positive impact. So it sounds to me, even though those weren't the words that you said, it sounds to me that might be. You
said it much better.
I think, and I think that's why we get along so well.
It's the accent.
Yeah. Well, Etie, mate, it's seriously, it's just such an honor to be able to sit down and have a conversation like this with you. I really, every time we get off the phone, I just feel like, I just have this endorphin rush of, like, fuck, that was just great. So thanks for sitting down. For anyone that, for anyone that might be relevant, I know you're working with large enterprise businesses, but anyone who's looking to find out more about Loris.ai or get in touch, I mean, what would be the best way for them to find out a little more information?
Yeah, so you can go obviously to our website, www.loris.ai, Loris.ai. You can find us on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and I guess you can email me too if you're interested, etie@loris.ai. Yeah, those are probably the best ways.
Awesome, perfect. Well, Etie, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day. And yeah, mate, I can't wait to see just how far it goes and how I believe it and you will change the world.
Thank you so much, Yoni. I really appreciate the time, and we'll do it in person soon, hopefully.
100%.